Man, it's been a little slow this week. What's up with you guys?
Same, but I was able to keep busy.
Well, I was under the weather this week, but I worked on other stuff.
Yeah, I get it, but guys, we aren't making money if we aren't recording, right?
Well, you're right, Jake, but you got to think a little deeper.
Uh-oh, that could be a problem.
Deeper?
See?
No, man, I just mean you got to think about laying your foundations for the future for more business, replacing people that leave and all that stuff. You know, sometimes all the marketing and stuff we do, you don't see results for a long time.
Ah, I see what you mean. Setting ourselves up for work later.
Now you're getting it. And man, you're doing all the right things. It just takes time.
Believe it or not, it's another VO podcast with three guys who are full-time voice actors at different stages of life, career, and location.
But they have formed a bond and worked together to hold each other accountable and help each other on their VO path.
Three guys from different backgrounds working together, helping each other, and sharing with you along the way.
Hey, what are we calling it again?
It's
another VO podcast.
Okay, guys. Sorry, I get it. Come on, you're not my dads.
Hey, would you look at that? It is another VO podcast with myself, Jake Sanders, Troy Holden, and Alden Schoenberg. Guys, how you doing
Great.
today? Good. That's really good. Hey, what's like the best impression you guys feel like you could ever do?
That's easy.
Okay, who you got?
Ronald Reagan.
Can you give us a line or two?
Well, this country's going to hell in a handbasket, and somebody's got to do something now.
That was pretty good. Alden, do you have one? Or
Yeah,
no? You
well,
don't have to. No pressure. I know I kinda put you
nothing
on the
like
spot.
that. I used to do a great Bullwinkle when I was in college.
Oh, let's hear it.
Oh, I have to remember what my little poem, let's see here. I can't remember the little joke I told. It'll come to me.
Okay, not a problem at all.
On the
I
mark.
thought he was going to say, want to see me pull a rabbit out of my hat?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
There was a little
That's it.
poem I had that that I can't remember.
Well, that's fine. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
whatever works.
Spider,
works.
spider
Well,
on
that's
the
cool.
wall. Don't you have any brains at all? Don't you know that wall's been plastered? You stupid little spider.
I
There you
see
go.
where you're going there. That was good. Well, I just wanted to start it off with something a little fun for everyone to listen to. You guys are thanks for
Entertainment.
obliging me. But I think today we're going to talk about just the importance of coaching. How to decide who you should coach with, or how you should decide if you want to continue coaching with someone, and probably touch on some, trying to have a level of why it's important to have a level of self-awareness when you're getting into voiceover, or really any kind of industry when you have to kind of display some talent. Now, I myself did not really start with any coaching. I mean, like I said in the episode we talked about on the VO Life, I did do like an evaluation with a guy that did voiceovers. His name was Bruce Carey. He's still active in the Dallas area. From his company's called Voices Carey. I was in maybe like an hour session with him, and he was like, yeah, I think you could do this. And he suggested to do some coaching with him, but at the time I couldn't really afford it. So I kind of laid the voiceover thing down for a while. But even when I did get back into voiceover and started pursuing it actively, I didn't get coaching with anyone for well over a year, but I had a background in theater acting and, some stage acting and whatnot. But theater is really where my brain was at, and what allowed me to kind of jump into voiceover and kind of have that natural understanding of what I should at least try to do. Now, was I perfect? Absolutely not. But again, I have a level of self-awareness that allowed me to start booking jobs, which once I started auditioning, I did fairly quickly. Now, what about you guys? Where were you at in your journey when you decided, I think I want to get coaching? Was it something like, if I'm going to do this, I want to do this right, and I want to start coaching? Or did you guys kind of jump into it from the get-go, auditioning, and then slowly realize you needed coaching? Where did that start for you?
I
all?
had entered slowly, first through ACX auditioning for some audiobooks. I'm not sure that at the level I was at that coaching, was necessary at that time. Audiobooks is one of the easiest entry points, especially on ACX if you're doing the low price line there. About 5 to 6 months later, though, I did seek out coaching because I wanted to do more. So I had done some audiobook work. I had done some IVR on hold messaging stuff, and those are a little more easy entry point. But I wanted to do more commercial. I wanted to do more e-learning. I wanted to get into that side of things. So already being a member of Bill DeWeese's Blueprint group, I went and got some coaching with Mike Hathcote, which was a great first coach for me. He was very complimentary on the little DIY commercial demo that I was already using. In fact, had confidence that I could actually start direct marketing with that and pick up clients. So that was very encouraging to me to know that I was already on the right track. So he helped me put together a narration demo that would seek more for explainers or even on the e-learning side of things. So I worked with him, and then he helped me build my website. So it was a great first coach to have because it helped me start to get my business off the ground.
Yeah. So how did you find him? Was he recommended from Bill's group that you were already in, or did you just start doing some research?
He learned under Bill. He's been working with Bill as a coach as well. And so, it was through Bill DeWeese that I learned about Mike Hathcote. I'd already been sitting in on some of his workshops he was doing then.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Do you, and just out of, it sounds like you probably kind of moved on just because you've progressed in your VO journey in general, but do you still take any kind of classes from Mike, or have you just kind of expanded?
I haven't for a while. But I wouldn't be against it because he was great to work with, very, very positive, encouraging, and knew and could identify with my voice and help me get the most out of my voice. So I really liked that. In the realm of e-learning, it was really natural speaking, trying to sound conversational and how to sound more conversational because sometimes when we're just reading, it sounds bad. It sounds like you're reading. You can't just sound like you're reading.
Yeah. It definitely takes a good ear to be able to listen to yourself and go, oh, this sounds bad. I'm not being as conversational, even if you thought you were. So that's definitely something that is a skill we all should do, is listen to ourselves and realize how we sound when we're actually having a conversation. Troy, what about you? Did you kick things off by just going to a coach, or what did you decide to do when it came to coaching?
A lot of it was listening to some things on YouTube, which pointed me to the fact of picking out some people off of like Voices or somewhere that your voice may be similar to theirs, and listening to their stuff and emulating how they read it, and can you do it? And then I also went to Bill DeWeese and was in the Blueprint, and I always call it the footprint. I don't know why. I always want to say it's the footprint. It's the Blueprint,
the voiceover footprint.
And I did the same exact thing as Alden. I went to Mike and did what Mike called the 6-pack, and you got 6 hours, and we kind of I didn't have to do website or anything with him. I already had some of that ready, but Mike really showed me the difference because I was a major announcer voice, and he really showed me how to pull that back, and coach me through several sessions to get me to be more conversational. And I still coach on that at times because it's still hard.
Sure.
It's much easier to do the announcer stuff, but and then from that, I started looking into, because I was listening to podcasts and hearing other people, and I came across the voiceover gurus, which at the time was Linda Bruno and JJ Wilson. I started going to their workshops, started getting encouragement from them, ended up becoming friends with JJ later, but I coached with them for quite a while. And then they told me, you need to get out there and go to work. You're ready. And that was kind of where it started. And of course, all the while in the background, I'm trying to do work on Upwork and Fiverr because I didn't know any better and wasn't really doing that great at it, but it paid for all that stuff I was getting done.
Sure.
So as I graduated from JJ and Linda, I started looking at, who are some of the renowned coaches, who would I want to try to work with? And some of them I may have only done one session with because I thought maybe it's not a good personality fit, or maybe it's not exactly, maybe it's repetitive of something I'd already learned before. And then I landed on what I call my life coach, and I think that's part of his marketing, which is Mark Ryder.
Yeah.
And we've been meeting pretty much monthly for, I don't know, not quite a year. So,
Yeah.
and there are sessions that he and I have that we don't do any quote unquote work. It's just, me venting about things and him giving advice and all. I mean, because that's what he is. He's he's a VO life coach. He's trying to help you in the business side and advise you. And he has given me so much great advice outside of just performance coaching, but he's a great performance coach as well.
Yeah, and that's actually it's funny you brought that up. I have looked at his VO life description thing, and I've really thought about doing that too. Now my situation right now doesn't necessarily allow me to do that, but it is something I definitely want to meet with him at some point. But you also touched on something else that I meant to ask you, Alden, but obviously we have time to do that. For both of you guys, have you guys have had coaches where you do a session with them and you kind of feel like either you didn't click with the coach, or maybe the route they were taking you didn't really like work for you in terms of helping you get the best out of your performance? Because that's an issue that we have. I say that's an issue that we have. That's something you can encounter, is that you really don't click with a coach, and that can be discouraging, especially if you do put some money into it. I know for me personally, I've had at least one coaching session where I was excited for it. I got in it, I did it, but when I got on the other side of it and I really sat back and thought, man, I was really hoping that would be one thing, but it didn't really resonate with me, and I don't really feel like it helped me all that much. Now, I think I took one or two things away from it, but nothing exponential that made me feel better about my performance. What kind of experiences do you guys have with that?
Well, I haven't had any coach that I've met with and thought that I'm getting nothing out of this. That hasn't happened to me. Now, I've been in some workshops where this is not what I thought it was going to be, so I'll just quietly disappear from the workshop. But as far as coaches go, no, I haven't had that. I went a little too long and I knew it was the case, and it was just part of the situation I was in during this transition to full time, but I went longer than I wanted to without a coach. And so when I went back to coaching, I was asking Troy, hey, because Troy has done quite a bit of searching and he's tried out some of these coaches. And hey, who do you think would be a good?
Yeah, Troy's an infinite amount of resources.
I knew what I wanted to get out of coaching for the next step, what I needed. And I said, who is a good fit for this that you think? And he had a great recommendation for me, and it was a great fit. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's excellent.
I agree. I'm with you there, and we can mention the name. It's Brad Highland, and Brad is, I coached with him along with while I was working with Ryder, and Brad's perspective is different than what Ryder's is, because Mark is he's with management companies. He's with big agents. He does a lot of big work. He can still teach you the other stuff, but Brad is doing a lot of what we're doing, and he has insight into that because he's successful at it right now. So when you're looking at a coach, I think one of the keys is you need to find somebody that's doing what you're doing. They're current, they're working, and they understand what you're trying to accomplish, and they can communicate that to you. Because the only time I've ever been with a coach and I felt like something wasn't working, I either felt like they thought, you don't really need to be here, or they thought, what I'm telling you, I don't know if you're getting it or not. And sometimes you'll have that communication gap. It's not that the coach was bad.
Right.
It's just that person and myself, we didn't connect on the learning level for some reason. Mm-hmm. And it can happen. It can happen. But coaching to me is, and the reason I've went to different people is I want to build my method. I don't want to copy Ryder's method. I don't want to copy Brad's method. I don't want to copy Mary Lynn Wisner. I don't want to copy Kim Handysides, all fantastic coaches, and Mike. But I want to take pieces from each one over the years and build Troy's method.
Yep.
Right. And that's how it should be. Yeah, you should never try to go out there and emulate what you are told. You should try to absorb what you learn and apply it to what works for you. I mean, There's going to be coaches, there are going to be methods that just do not work with you or resonate with you. That doesn't mean that those people who taught you those things are bad at what they do. It's just not everyone is for you. Not every coach is for you. And just like you're going to have people that don't like you, and that's whatever, that's their problem. It's not yours. Like, you're going to have coaches that you just don't understand and you don't get, but that's perfectly fine. That does not take away from what they have done for themselves and what they've actually done for others. Yeah. But just like anything, you've got to put, just like your marketing and just like auditioning, you've got to put the work in. You've got to put the work into finding the right coach. You got to ask the right questions, right? You got to know what questions to ask them when you get in a lot of these coaches will do like a little 30-minute meet and greet with you to see, because a lot of these better coaches are selective of who they're going to coach. They don't just coach anyone, which I think is a great sign of a good person, because you don't want someone who's just going to money grab. And a lot of these coaches aren't coaching for the money. Their time is valuable, so they do put a charge on it, but they're not making their large income off of the coaching money. They're making their money doing the voiceover stuff, which is why people are drawn to them in the first place. Like, hey, what worked for you? And then you got to ask yourself, what can I take away from this, and how do I apply it? Right?
I think a good starting point would be to write down what you want to get out of coaching, because that will help you find the coach. And then when you have that meet and greet, that little Zoom session to get to know each other, you can say, here's what I'm looking for. I'm looking to improve my auditions. I want to be better at auditioning. I want to get shortlisted more often. Or, maybe it's something else. I want to get better at doing promos or commercial, because they can specifically gear that to serve that need in the best way.
Yeah.
Right. And don't forget, too, there are coaches who coach the auditioning and the business side. And I've taken some of that, and I came away from that totally disagreeing with part of what I was coached on. This is how I do it, and this is what works for me, and da-da-da-da. And I came back and I said, I can't do that. It would take me twice as long to get everything done. And you're going to run into things like that where you think, just because it worked for them doesn't mean it'll work for you, even on the business side. So, and Jake, you mentioned most of your coaches worth their salt. They will definitely give you 15, 30-minute Zoom call. You can kind of get to know them. They'll tell you what their process is, and you can make a decision. And definitely do that. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, you definitely got to do a lot of vetting, and something that I think we might have touched on, or maybe it wasn't super obvious. Try to pick a coach that's actually working. There are folks who've been in the business who maybe they weren't able to keep up with the time so much, and maybe they're not booking so much. They can show you some things, but you want to be able to coach with someone who's current, someone who knows the trends, someone that's going to hear something in your voice and go, oh, what that works really well with, or where you should focus, like someone that's going to give you point you in the right path, essentially, and that's really important. So while coaches do vet who they're willing to take on, we do need to vet who we're willing to coach with and who we want to learn with, and what we can 100%. Take away from that. Now, like I said to in the beginning, I didn't really do a whole lot of coaching. I already had some acting background in general, and I've always just had fun with my voice. And I think I've been able to recognize how to, the basics, essentially, recognize the basics. And that's where I think natural ability and self-awareness come into play. And you really have to have some natural ability to be truly successful. I'm not saying that you can't learn. I mean, you can always learn, but at the end of the day, you do have to have some kind of ability to build upon. I think it would be really hard for you, someone who goes, oh, I always wanted to be a voice actor. Well, have you ever tried, do you ever mess with your voice? Do you ever emulate commercials you hear? Do you ever try to do this? Well, no. But then what do you have to build off of, right? I mean, you can go out there and try, but if you don't have something to if you don't have an axe to sharpen, essentially, then it's really going to be really hard for you to get into this industry, at least from a career standpoint. If it's a hobby, sure, be a hobby. I mean, that's fine. Totally have a hobby or a fun party trick or whatever you want to, however you deem it. But is that something that you guys have heard from coaches or from other people, or that you feel in general? Like, do you, what like, outside of being our worst critics, do you believe in yourself enough to be like, I have an ability to do this, right? Like, is that how you guys feel about it? Like, you have anything to add to that thought?
That's deep.
I'm not trying. I mean, like, again, I'm not trying to step on toes.
No.
I
understand what you're saying, because we had talked earlier today off the podcast that a lot of people invest a lot of money and never make it back.
Right.
And here's my 2 cents. And folks, this is just an opinion. I mean, you're not
100%.
even a free opinion, and that even makes it funner.
Because we get to make up words like funner.
There are people who come into VO that have acting and theater background, and they have a leg up. I do believe that. I think it helps. I also think for some, it unfortunately has the reverse effect, because they're used to projecting and the way they speak and whatever, and they have a hard time changing it. So I think that's a two-way street. For some it helps, for some it doesn't. Here's the thing I also believe. If you come out of, say, a corporate background and you worked in HR and you were a trainer and you talk to people all the time, you can probably get this.
Yeah.
If you were a kid who grew up with this crazy imagination and all your action figures always talk to each other back and forth in different voices.
Yeah.
And you were always creative. If you're a grown adult who rides in your car and you're always talking to yourself, not in a crazy way, but you're one of those people in the car and you're like carrying on a conversation sometimes by yourself, because your imagination and your mind is always in this creative gear.
Yes.
If you have that, you can do this.
Yeah.
But if you do not have that spark inside you to be creative and have a crazy imagination and to be sometimes just let go and be silly and crazy with some of this stuff. If you can't do that, you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wasn't trying to just limit it because I had a theater background. I was just speaking for myself. But exactly like you said.
Sure, Mr. Actor.
Yeah. You guys saw right through that, didn't you?
Yeah,
well, and I think,
no, but I'm serious. I mean, it's funny you said that, Troy, because we talked about that the other day, how we used to, and this was off podcast. I think it was just you and I shooting the shit. But we used to make up voices for our, action figures, or we talk for our dogs and stuff like that. Like everyone kind of has that. So I'm not saying that you can't build off of it, but if you don't have that, if you don't, like you said, that spark of creativity, which I really like, if you don't have that spark to build off of, it's you really got to be aware of your limit, what your limits are going to be in the industry.
Well, and I think that when it,
that doesn't mean you can't do audiobooks and corporate narration and things like that. But some of the other is going to be harder.
And when it comes to VO, there's a wide range to build your career on. There is voiceover all over the place. And so sometimes you can have a good coach, but the reason they're not a good match is because the particular segment of the industry that you're trying to get into, they really don't do a lot of that. So it might be that you, just because they said no, isn't because you can't take it. It's because I don't think this is a good match, coach and student. So you want to have a good match of coach and student.
Mm-hmm. You just need to be aware of who you are, really, of who you are, where you think you can go, and where and where you're willing to go, right? Like, you have to have a level of self-awareness that basically, it's kind of like a shield. I'm not saying like keep a wall up and be or whatever, but like just know that not everything's going to be for you, right? And I know that about myself. I'm sure you guys, and if it's not, and what's not for you is probably a good thing, right? Like, don't put your energy into stuff that's not good for you. Mm-hmm. Put your energy into what you can do best or what works for you best, and put and apply that to everything. Your marketing, your coach, again, picking a coach, and your auditions and what you audition for. I mean, Troy, you touched on, I think in one of the last episodes, that you've been more focused on, like, I'm not auditioning for everything now. I'm auditioning for what suits me best, because those are where my better chances are. And you have to have that level of self-awareness to do that, to hone in on that and be like, I belong in this sector, and that's okay.
Yeah. You're never going to hear on TV a Southern accent doing American Express. You're just not. They don't do that, and you're not going to hear if in an e-learning course about, storage on the cloud and this. You're just not going to hear my natural voice doing that. You're not. That's okay, because you are going to hear it on enough things that there's plenty of work out there to go after.
Yeah.
And, it's it's not a stay in your lane thing. It's more of a, for me, it's more of a time thing. And I thought, why should I do 22 auditions when only 7 of these are really, really in my wheelhouse?
Right.
But there are business type coaches that will tell you audition for everything that's open, every one of them. Well, you can kind of do that on voices.com. It's not going to hurt you. Your shortlist percentage is going to go to crap, probably.
Yep.
But you can't do that on Voice 123 with that favorites algorithm.
Now, if you're just getting started, if you're just getting started, you might want to let that tell you where you're best, what's a best fit for you,
Yes.
So, but once you've established that, hey, my best success is happening in these sectors of VO, so I'm going to aim at those. And every once in a while, if something fun comes up and I want to try it, I'll try it. But you know where the bulk of your success is going to be. So why not audition for where you're going to have the highest percentage chance of winning?
Yeah. Like, put your energy where it's going to count the most.
Yep. And people will say, well, I need to practice. Just don't turn them in.
Yeah, sure.
Practice, record
or do
it,
a
but
mock,
don't send
do
them
a mock
in.
audition.
Yeah.
I do that. I did a couple of those yesterday. One was one of the medical, the informational thing at the end of the thing. And it had words in there that I knew were hard. And I said, I need to practice on something like that, because what if something does pop up and it does say a Texas or Southwest thing? I need to be able to read these and do it well. So I recorded it, listened back to it, and I thought, it's okay. It's not terrible, but I did not submit it because I knew it wouldn't fly.
And another thing you can do with those samples is, if you are fortunate enough to have an accountability group or maybe a couple people you're talking to, after you listen to it, gather your thoughts about that sample, send it to your group and see what they say.
Yes.
And that's basically free right there. I mean, like, those people will give you ask for their honest opinion, which you should always give your honest opinion. I mean, we strive off of honest opinions. It's like, we love to hear great job, that sounded so cool and stuff like that. But what I get the most out of is feedback that tells me how to do it better, or what they think what they think might work better, so I can at least try it. Now, is it always right? Maybe not. But at the same time, maybe they're hearing something or thinking of something that you just haven't thought of
because
yet,
we want to improve. That's what we really want.
Right.
It's not just we want to hear that we sound great. We want to improve.
Yeah.
We want to get better at what we're doing, which, takes us kind of full circle back to choosing your coach, right? You want a coach that is going to give you the honest opinion, and I think most of them do. They're going to be critical when they need to be critical. They're even going to maybe be nitpicky. And if you've got a coach that's being nitpicky, take that as a compliment. Because that means you're doing a lot of stuff right. And they're helping you, instead of getting from a 50 to a 60, they're helping you get from a 70 to an 80, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Good point. That's a really good point, because if it's, if you're getting to the point to where your interpretation's good and you know where the script changes gears and where you're supposed to change emotion, and then they go, well, maybe instead of saying the, you should have said the, so it's more Jen Am.
Yeah.
When it's getting down to that, you're doing much better.
Well, then they push you out of your
100%.
comfort zone.
Yeah, it makes a difference.
Like, do this one like Bullwinkle would do it.
Right. Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
American
and
Express.
Hey, are you talking about coaching? There's a.
I think wasn't there a
there's
American
probably,
Express?
Yes, there was.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
It's a long time ago. Hey, also remember when we're in this coaching thing, don't forget golly, I'm going blank. Don't forget to do the acting side of improv, because that is such a huge thing to help you. And you think improv, and a lot of people look at improv and they think, well, that's,
Right.
whose line is it anyway?
And
It's
being all
funny.
Yeah.
super
You got to be
goofy
funny.
and-
You got to be
yeah.
funny. But that's not
Mm-mm.
what it is. It's the thing of you being able to change character, change your outlook, change your position during that script or for a second take. And it helped me a lot. I mean, and I was in a Scott Parkin thing, and it was back during COVID and it was online, but you'd be reading and then all of a sudden he'd say, okay, so now you're the airline pilot and you're a cowboy wearing a pistol and you're flying the plane.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? But you immediately had to go into that character. Or you're in an elevator with these three people and you're hysterical. No, now you're calm. Everything's fine, and you had to learn to change. And I think that helped me a ton, was going through that. So if you can find that,
Yep.
do that too.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, improv is an excellent, and not just for voiceover. So if anyone's listening that's not necessarily into voiceover, improv's great for just being able to like talk to other people out and about, whether that's in your corporate world or if you're, out at like a party with people you don't necessarily know. Like improv is an excellent skill to learn, and it's so much fun too. If you allow yourself to open up to that stuff, like your possibilities are endless. But I agree with that 100%. I've even done that, and I intend to do more of it. Like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, improv, the whole Whose Line Is It Anyway? I mean, like one of the best shows from the 90s and the 2000s. But it just, yes, it's all about just letting loose and just putting yourselves in the situations without scripts and just letting go. Yeah. But it can come in so much handy with auditions and just with your everyday life in general. So I'm glad you brought that up, Troy.
You're thinking on your feet and you're immediately making a choice.
Yes.
And that's what you have to do so often when you're auditioning. You have to make a choice, stick to it, and go.
Yep.
And improv
and it's an
will help
exercise.
you with that
You're exercising those muscles so that you can use them when you need to use them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. I can tell my improv skills, I forget it sometimes because I'll play, and Alden, you learned this lesson like I did a while back. We send in those 2 takes during our coaching session and we get busted. and the thing is, you got to turn that second one into, improv that second one. And that's what you got to remember. They have got to be so polar different. North Pole, South Pole different, and we forget that. Yeah.
Anytime I see improv, like in like the like, hey, we would like to hear a take, where you're allowed to throw in some improv. That's basically them saying like, we're not quite sure where we want this to go, but if you've got something that you think you can bring to the table, then bring it. And that should be such a freeing moment for you to be like, all right, I'm going to have fun with this. Like, sure, I'll give them a take that kind of maybe match the specs or whatever, depending on how you approach your auditions. But then you can also give them a take that's just completely your own. And I think a lot of the things that we hear, especially with bigger jobs and from casting, about what casting's actually looking for is they want to see you. And when you're given the green light to improv, that's like your best opportunity to be you.
Mm-hmm.
So
I agree.
Yeah. Well, do you guys have anything else to add to, anything about coaching, anything about self-awareness, anything about just anything that we've talked about today? Got any final thoughts you want to share before we
I think those go great hand
out?
in hand. I mean, you've got to have good self-awareness with your coach. You've got to know who you are. I understood what you were trying to say. Yeah, it was deep. But you got to know who you are. You have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to take correction and direction. Yeah.
Because it's not
and
personal.
If you find out from a coach that you can't take direction, that you're going to go up against it, they're going to, you know what you're talking about, then maybe voiceover isn't for you. Because you have to be directed by your client. You have to understand what they're trying to say that they want. They hear something in your voice. The client hears something in your voice that is close to what they want. But you have to be able to take direction, understand where the project is going so you can deliver. So you don't buck against your coach.
Right. You got to be dough and they're going to be the molder.
Right.
So you got to be
You're still going to customize it and be who
amiable.
you are. But you can't be afraid to take criticism and the the constructive criticism.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk.
Exactly. There's no room for that. And
Because
you're just doing yourself a
think,
disservice.
If you think they're not going to tell people, they are.
Right.
I mean, they know casting directors. Most of the, VO's a pretty tight community, and you could probably get a bad name really quick. So don't do that. Don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
Don't stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Stick out
And
like
if
a
you're
pretty
going to do that, get out of voiceover.
Be a nice person.
Get out of voiceover. If you're not going to be
Right.
moldable, teachable, coachable.
Yeah, go
Right.
be
Yeah,
a shoe salesman or something.
Yeah. Well, guys, I really had fun this podcast. This one kind of flew by for me. I don't know about you guys, but I mean, we've just had so much to add and so much to input. So I'm really happy that we were able to get together and talk about this today. Yes, it was. Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we go, I just wanted to give another shout out to our email. If you have questions, if you're curious about maybe who you should coach with or maybe where to start with coaching, shoot us an email over at anothervopodcast@gmail.com. We'll be happy to answer that here, or we can address it on the podcast. Or if you've got thoughts, ideas, want to contribute to any of the conversations we've had so far, don't hesitate to reach out. We would love to hear from you guys and talk about stuff that you want to hear on our podcast. So again, thanks for tuning in. I'm Jake Sanders. I'm here with Alden Schoenberg and Troy Holden. We'll see you in the next one, and just go out there and be the best you can.
Bye-bye.
See ya.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of It's Another VO Podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. You can also email us your questions to anothervopodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Instagram at Another VO Podcast. See you next time.
You've been listening to It's Another VO Podcast. I'm Alden Schoenberg.
And I'm Jake the Snake.
No, you are not. Settle down.
All right. I'm Jake Sanders.
And I'm Troy Holden.
Join us weekly as we spill the beans about our challenges being full-time struggling voice actors.
Yeah, and by the way, my girlfriend says you two better get it together, because she doesn't want me carrying you two on this podcast.
Saith the voiceover rookie himself. But be sure and join us on the next episode, because I guarantee it, Jake will do something worth hearing.
And what do you mean by that? No, really, what does that mean?
Dude, let it go. It's all right. It's all right.
Hey, where are you guys going? Hey, don't you kill the feed. Don't you dare kill the feed. Hey, where are you going, Alden? Troy, what are you... Come back!